Imusama has just revealed a new level to his power, which might have given us the final hint needed to pinpoint his devil fruit of the Sea Devil. He will use this power of the Abyss Mark to assert his Domi Reversing over Luffy, turning him into evil Nika. While Loki, wielding the legendary Soul God fruit of Elbaf, will heat up the one's Domi Reversing to bring them out of the devil's control. But before we reach that point, we must go back to 15 years ago, where the world's perception of the giants and Elbaf is going through a rapid transformation, mostly thanks to King Harald helping police the seas and even the new giant squadron of the Marines. However, this would only bolster how dangerous and strong the giants are. Instead, people are warming up to the exports of Elbaf, such as seafood. Normal humans would find it very difficult to hunt giant fishes like the goldfish we saw Dory and Broggy destroy at the end of Little Garden. But to the people of Elbaf, these sea creatures are just normal-sized food. So the greater world is being introduced to new delicacies, and it's in high demand. Even the cedar wood from Elbaf is helping strengthen towns and ships all across the world. This prosperity of Elbaf is what Harald has been fighting for the last 70 years. And this is before Elbaf has even been admitted as a member nation, by the way. Once that happens, Harald dreams of building cruises that will take giants sightseeing through all their allies' countries. This moment is what cemented Harald as the beloved king of Elbaf, the greatest king ever for the giants. Before Harald started opening up to the outside world, Elbaf was going through times of famine and constant struggles alone. But the last famine we have heard about was over 50 years ago, and not many died due to Harald's human allied nations helping them out. Harald in his speech says that the giants are a rare minority in the world from the perspective of humans, but there are also a lot of nations out there with a wide variety of races coexisting. This is thanks to a culture of mutual respect. By the giants sharing in this cultural exchange, they will seem less scary, allowing them to grow in knowledge together as friends. People in Elbaf even say that let's just ditch the warrior crap altogether, because remember, most of the giants are forced into becoming warriors and fighters. Who in their right mind would want to risk their lives every day in war and battles just to survive? That's why the Walrus School is so damn successful. However, of course, that warrior pride is part of Elbaf's culture, and they shouldn't throw it all away. That's what Saul says, to which King Harald believes that it isn't military power that makes a country strong anymore. That's what his love Ida made him realize over 80 years ago. And at this moment, Oda shows us Ida's grave. Yo, you like that shit, bro? You like that shit? I just set that up. I just set that up today. All right. This is about to be hella sad, so we got to turn it red, right? Right, guys? Ida never made it to this moment of Elbaf's prosperity. Why? Well, because of the prejudice inside Elbaf's border itself. Although the world has started accepting the giants, some giants never really accepted Ida. This highlights that the world and people outside Elbaf isn't that different from Elbaf itself. This is the flaw Harald has. He sees the outside world and the government as one big monolith with the same ideals. If the people accept the giants, everyone will be forced to accept them, right? Wrong. Just like how the elders or the elites of Elbaf never saw Ida as a true giant, the elder stars and Imu, the elites of the world government, would never see the giants as equal. If bro couldn't change the minds of his own people, how could Harald change the Gorosei's view of his race? Both parties have already made up their minds. By creating a caste of people beneath them is how the elders justify their power and wealth, and why they're so much better than you. In Ida's final moments though, she has a much more nuanced look about Elbaf's culture. She says when she came to the island, there was a ton of conflict within the nation, but Harald changed all of that. Now, instead of worrying about pillaging and fighting, the children can laugh and study instead. Harald quickly jumps in to say that those customs were backward traditions. Practices from the warrior era should all be forgotten forgotten and thrown away. However, Ida kind of liked that about Elbaf. Like, she fell in love with Harald before he was a changed man. Remember that, guys. Harald here comes off as a bit of an extremist. You can have a warrior's pride while also studying and having a thirst for knowledge. Harald is the prime example of this. In the future, you have kids like Rania who love knowledge and education, but also kids like Colin who love fighting and being a warrior. In this new Elbaf, Colin would be discriminated against just like how a non-warrior type was chastised in old Elbaf. Ida says that you should cherish your warrior pride while also not going overboard. Then Oda drops a bombshell which most wouldn't realize. Ida and Harald view Haruden and Loki as true brothers. Haruden isn't a bastard who won't have a claim to the throne. Instead, he is the best suited one to become the next king of Elbaf during the dawn, by birth order and character-wise as well. The giants love Haruden, not Loki. They see him as an outcast. That's why Loki was imprisoned by Shanks. So I believe that Loki will accompany the Straw Hats in their next quest against Imu and the world government, maybe even becoming a Straw Hat himself. As you know, we have a fishman in the crew now, but not a giant. However, Loki's main goal after Elbaf arc is going to be finding the Galila giants, which Rox asked him to do in their final meeting. But I will get deeper into Loki's role at the end of the video, which has a lot to do with his legendary soul god fruit. In the meanwhile, you guys should definitely check out Gamer Subs. Yep, they have some banger new flavors out, and you know, I love me some Gamer Subs, and as I always say, if you guys buy Gamer Subs, they send me free Gamer Subs, and when I drink Gamer Subs, I can make faster videos. Yo, they got these new cups, guys. Look, they have new cups. Editor, show the cups, bro. They have some new pixel cups. Use code ABD for 10% off across all orders at Gamer Subs, okay? I can change the color to blue, another blue. I can change a lot of colors. It's all thanks to you guys. You know, I'll keep it blue. Harald is elated to accept the Deep Sea Pact. He's been waiting for this moment for over 20 years. It's finally time for Elbaf to become a member nation. Harald also gets to see the Great One, Imusama, where he says that after Elbaf becomes a member nation, he will give up the throne of Elbaf. A younger, more virtuous ruler than himself should take over. This highlights how Harald sees himself in the grand scheme of things. He was just a tool for Elbaf's prosperity. He is too tainted to be called king. That's why he broke off his horns, which represented his giant's pride. However, in a shocking decree, Imu reveals his hand. He says that it is up to him to decide who will become king of Elbaf, as he is the true king of the world. By joining the government, it doesn't give any nation equal rights. Instead, they become subjugated to the whims of the true ruler in the dark, Imusama. He instantly casts his spell on Harald, and the old shallow sea mark transforms into one with horns on it. Harald says that this has given him an insane power boost, and it feels very cold, which comes from the immortality power. It sends shivers down the spine. Saint Vetus says that Harald isn't a monster anymore, but a fierce weapon for Imu. And as his first order, Harald must carve an abyss pentagram in Elbaf, which will mark the bond between Imu and the giants. Harald, meanwhile, is just happy that Elbaf has become part of the government now. It's time for celebration. After the pentagram is made, the decades-long dream is complete. However, the devil reveals his deceit. He orders Harald to mobilize the entire nation to form a grand army of warriors. They will stand alongside the Marines as a government force. This is literally what Harald has been fighting against for his people all this time, to be not seen as just warriors. But Imu, ever since the beginning, only viewed the giants as weapons. Harald was tricked into this deal. He screams that he did everything to keep Elbaf away from violence. If anyone in the country wants to fight and be a warrior, he will allow them to do so, even join the Marines. But there are those who want to go to school and become educated. They shouldn't be forced into a military without choice. Imu says that Harald's power isn't enough to atone for Elbaf's history of violence against the world. Even if every giant becomes a slave, the price wouldn't be enough to be paid. Harald is absolutely devastated at this point. Imu has complete control over him through the Deep Sea Pact. He says that now Harald can't disobey Imu's orders. Those with the contract gain immortality and power, but it comes at the cost of their freedom. Harald will carry out Imu's orders regardless of how he feels. That's why Shanks left before getting the second tier mark, which means that Shanks had already found out all he needed to know about Imu and the government, because Harald didn't know what the pact even meant until now after he was taken over, but Shanks might have. And where did he go right after leaving Marishwa? To Elbaf, likely to warn Harald, but he was too late. Quickly, the king starts losing control of his own body, realizing finally that the government never meant for Elbaf to become part of the world. In his final gambit, using all his haki, he orders guards to restrain him to a pillar in the castle and summon the strongest in Elbaf, Elder Yarul, his son Loki, and Haruden. But Haruden is still at sea trying to find a cure for his mother, while Loki is imprisoned. Harald says it doesn't matter, just let him out. He is summoning these people because he knows Harald must be defeated in order to stop Elbaf's enslavement by Imu. Now, this is what I think will happen. We're about to get to evil Luffy. And you know it's facts what I'm about to speak, because I not only have one quarter zip on, I have 2 quarter zips on. So my words are basically facts. Also, do you guys see how like it's basically a dragon cosplay? You have green and then orange. It looks exactly like dragon.
Shut the fuck up.
Harold will ask Loki to eat the legendary fruit of Elbaf in order to expel Imu from his body. Throughout our interactions with Imu's powers, the Gorosei and Harold mention how it feels cold and chilly to be given Imu's immortality. Imu even has a cold-ass freezer in the basement of Marishwa, and the abyss is likely referring to the dark parts of the sea, because the pacts are named after levels of the ocean: shallow sea pact, a deep sea pact, and the seafloor or the deep sea pact, which makes me think that Imu definitely has the sea devil fruit, which gives him the power of the abyss. You know how we have only mapped out like what 5% or 10% of the ocean's floor in our world, and every few years we learn of some new giant creature deep in the ocean? It's possible that the One Piece world is similar. Imu has the power of the depths of the ocean. The area is also extremely cold. Well, because there is an absence of sunlight there. Just like how the world of One Piece for 800 years has been shrouded in darkness, cold and desolate due to the devil at the top, until sun god Nika brings the warmth of liberation back into the planet. Now, how would Loki's fruit work to dispel Imu from Harald? Well, because the legendary fruit in Elbaf is actually the soul god fruit that doesn't stretch like Nika's but burns like the raw plasma of the sun. You see, the sun isn't just hot, but it's uncontainable, just like Loki. It's a fusion furnace made of plasma, which is the 4th state of matter. And guess what else is plasma? Lightning. And Loki's Ragnir might be a weapon designed to control this godly power. If we go back to chapter 1151, the roots of Elbaf's Atom Tree caught fire and the skies turned white when Loki used his lightning hammer. The fruit wasn't granting power, but was burning everything on sight. Just like Nika makes Luffy laugh, Soul makes Loki burn and destroy everything around him, and which is why he disappeared. Then Shanks, the symbolic Norse mythological god Skoll, had to intervene, because in Norse mythology, Skoll chases the sun until Ragnarok, and Loki in myth becomes fire itself, aiming to burn down Valhalla. In One Piece, the Valhalla is the Holy Land. Furthermore, this fruit is one of Imu's greatest fear. That's why Elbaf wasn't touched for centuries. The heat from Loki's soul fruit can dispel the chilling immortality and un-Domi Reversi'ing of Imusama. Furthermore, in his last gambit, I believe Imu will try to take over Luffy, basically un-Domi Reversi'ing him. However, he will quickly realize that he can't control Nika. Luffy instead will get juiced by Imu's power. We saw something similar in chapter 426 all the way back in Thriller Bark, when they implanted 100 shadows into Luffy to create Nightmare Luffy. He kept control. Furthermore, the corpse groups of Oars who had Luffy's shadow, which has the power of his fruit, started to disobey Moria. He wanted to be free and exhibited a Nika-like personality, proving the wielder of the Nika fruit can't be un-Domi reversing or controlled by someone else. Chopper even says that Moria is reversing nature to manipulate the properties of his shadows. Now, when we get back to the present, Loki will use his soul fruit powers to un-Domi reverse the giants, warming them away from the devil's control, while Luffy, using his Nika fruit powers, will stretch his haki to a level that knocks Imu out of the country. Thank you so much for watching, you guys. This was a crazy chapter. Next chapter, we're finally gonna know what happened to Harald and Loki having the fruit or not. It's gonna be a banger chapter, so stay tuned. Thank you so much. I'll see you guys next One Piece video.